people moan that it's not quite clear enough, in which case we'll flip and do the share screen thing. But if this works, it'll be much more fun.
Yeah. Now I see you. Now I see your setup. Just making sure the live stream. Making sure we started correctly.
I'll tell you the other thing I better do is I better do that. And just make sure that that works. Is that coming through as well?
Yes. All right, there we go. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of Power Hour for the 2021 calendar year. Great to see everyone again. So we got a few people hopping on. Do apologize for starting a little late. Time zones are a thing, and apparently I cannot time zone. But yeah, I know. I still think it's like March of 2020. That's what it feels like to me. But so joining me today, we have Rob Sewell. That was my second guess.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm not only am I bad at time zones, I'm bad pronouncing names as well. But so Rob, welcome. Glad you could join us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you want to obviously most people probably know who you are, but for the people watching at home and watching the recording, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Rob. I am from the UK, as you can tell. And once upon a time, I was a SQL Server DBA, a production guy looking after everything. And I'll come to that in a minute, my friend. Nowadays, I just help companies make stuff go. So I'm a dual MVP, so I'm a cloud and data center management MVP for my PowerShell community stuff, and I'm a data platform MVP for the things I do for the data platform community. So I'm really lucky. I live in these two worlds where I'm part of the data platform community, when involved in SQL Saturdays and events and working a lot with the data platform, but also in the PowerShell world as well. So I'm one of the organizers for PSConf EU. I've done a lot of speaking at PowerShell user groups and PowerShell events as well. And people have always wanted to ask, how long did the very first beard take to become the beard? So I think it became the beard once Chrissy Lemaire started calling it that. And that's the honest answer. I've had a beard since I was 20, 21, mainly because I'm lazy. And also because my beard grows really, really quickly. So, this bit I would shave in the morning, and by lunchtime, my boss would be saying, "Hey, young man, you haven't shaved today. Go and shave. You're a disgrace to the company." Blah 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 blah. And I'd be like, seriously, honestly, I shaved. And he didn't believe me until I walked in and said, first thing in the morning, I'm like, "Look, clean shaven." Yeah, okay. And then at lunchtime, I went back and I'm like, "Look, stubble." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Can I just have a beard, please?" And he said, "As long as you keep it neat." Well, fair enough. So I had a neat beard for a long time. My wife asked me to shave it off before we got married. She said she wanted to see me clean shaven once at least before we got married. So I did, and I literally started growing it the next day because it was terrible.
So I'm guessing she saw you once.
Yep, absolutely. And now I do this, and I'm lucky because this doesn't fit in with a lot of corporate type culture. There are organizations that are not keen on having a mad, hairy, biker-looking fella coming in doing stuff for them, and to which I say, okay, because people want me for what's in here or what's coming out of here or the things that I can build for them. So that's perfectly fine these days, and as such, I just let it grow. So it's now this long. So yes, that was a big lot of waffle about me. One of the things you'll notice about me when I'm doing things like this is you can send me down all sorts of rabbit holes and I'll carry on talking. So please, as we go through this session, just ask questions. And James, just interrupt. Don't hesitate. Just fire it in, and we'll have a question, and you'll dive me down into some rabbit hole, and everybody will learn stuff. And hey, that's the best way to do stuff.
Absolutely. So for those of you that are watching live with us, if you got any questions, drop them in the chat. We're also linked to the Discord and PowerShell Slack, the social-events channel. So if you don't want to make a Twitch account, you can go in there, and that'll be coming over. It's about a 30-second delay between those two, but we'll get those over to Rob. So the first question has already been answered, asking about your beard. So I guess we'll get to it now.
For sure. Shall we do some of this? So, every time. Let me try that. And a bit of that. And it's lucky having all of these screens because it means that we can see, oops, we actually want this one, don't we? So there we go. James, we can see all of the screens, I hope. And if not, you can shout at me.
Yeah, so we see, oh, there it goes. I ain't no data scientist.
Excellent. So let's do this other thing as well. Let's spin this up. The advantage of having a standing desk is it means that I can stand up. Because the problem is that I talk with my hands all the time, so I do generally knock things over. So at least if I'm standing up, I could be a little bit away from the desk. So I ain't no data scientist. Why do I need a Jupyter notebook? James, have you ever used a Jupyter notebook?
No, I've seen them in presentations, but that's about it.
I see. So why do we need Jupyter notebooks? Well, let's start with answering that question. Let's start with clicking on the presentation so that your clicker works. There we go. So as we said, my name's Rob Sewell. These are the things that I do. We talked about a lot of those things already. Most importantly, if you would like to get in touch with me, please do. You can find me on Twitter. That's the best way of doing it. At SQLDBA with beard. Now notice, it's not SQLDBA with our beard. And the reason for that is because the first time I changed my Twitter handle, I became SQLDBA with a bear, which was much funnier. And I did actually keep that Twitter handle because it made me laugh. But SQLDBA with beard, best way to get in touch with me. So let's, see, I'm good at this technology stuff. So let's click this button. And now with a bit of luck, that's interesting. Now with a bit of luck, if I run some PowerShell,
Gotta love technology.
yeah, it works so beautifully well all of the time. And what I didn't realize when I tested this was that you didn't tell me that you couldn't see me up here.
Oh, yeah, you were in the bottom right-hand corner. Now you're in the top left.
Yeah, there we go. So, it's wonderful. I love doing stuff like this. So what people want to know is, well, what's it like in the UK? So here you go. This is me. Hello. Here I am. This is where I work. I've got 2 screens to look at, and I've got this screen here doing stuff, and I've pretty much always got a pussycat on my desk getting in the way. You'll see I create a nice bed for him here, and he doesn't use it. He likes to sleep over there. And this is where we spend our lives these days. We're stuck in these rooms by ourselves in our home. I'm really lucky. I've got an office that I can enjoy. I know some people work on kitchen desks, or sit on the sofa or stuff. So I would say really try and get a good space where you can do some work. It's much, much more productive. So hopefully there's some European folk here, and I just want to clear something up very quickly, because I've said already, I'm one of the folk that helped to organise the PowerShell conference in Europe, and I'm not very happy about this Brexit thing. In fact, it's the worst trade negotiation since Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. It got so bad that even the introverts got out and started writing signs and protesting. It's a terrible, terrible thing, but it's what I have to live with. And I bring that up because I like to get it out of the way before somebody else mentions it. Because seriously, can we not just control and set this? Because it'd be so much better. But we're not talking about Brexit, thank goodness. What we're going to talk about is Jupyter. And this is Jupyter. This is the south pole of Jupyter, taken on a flyby by the spaceship Juno. And actually, we're going to talk about this Jupyter, the one with the Y. Why are we talking about this one? How did it get its name? Well, it got its name, firstly, from the planet, which is cool. And then also because it uses Julia and Python and R. These are the languages that are involved. But the most important reason is because Galileo was the person who discovered the moons of Jupiter. And what he did was he included his results within his publication and included the data that he helped to make his results within that publication. And that meant that anybody could take it and reproduce his work and see if they came up with the same answers. And that really is where these data science folks came up with the idea. Because Jupyter Notebooks originally, they're for people like Terry and Simon. They're data scientists. They're people who make predictions and build models and work in Spark and R, Python. I have no idea what they do. Seriously, I've got no idea. So, hang on a minute. I'm not a data scientist. You're not a data scientist. Why do we need a Jupyter Notebook? Well, let's start off by going back in time. Let's go back to 2006. And in 2006, people were running PowerShell. And what they had was a blue box. It was awesome. There was a blue box. They could type in their commands. They could get their answers. Excellent. We skipped forward to 2010 and everything improved. What we got then was a blue box, but it had a 2 with it this time. Version 2 PowerShell. And we had the ISE. That was the first version of the ISE. Basically looked the same with some menu buttons, and it was a white box. More development. We went to 2012. And in 2012, we got a blue box. Excellent. PowerShell version 3. Yeah, the top bar looks a little bit different, but it's still a blue box. ISE had been improved with this new command add-on, which I have never used. I always just closed it. In 2017...
So I'm not the only one that keeps closing that command palette.
No, for sure. It just literally was just like, oh, why are you opening up? And then I found out how you could stop it opening up by default. It was like, oh, thank goodness. 2017, an amazing thing happened. PowerShell 5 came, and that gave us a blue box, but it's white at the top this time. Much cleaner. ISE got a little bit smoother, perhaps. Still had that rotten command box, but it was cool. 2018, my word, who would have seen it coming? Nobody would have seen it coming. PowerShell Core, and because it was PowerShell Core and it was cross-platform, and they wanted to save on the CPU of putting out all of that blue, they made a black box. That's a joke, by the way. They made a black box. In between those sort of times, 2016, 2017, there's this cool guy called David Wilson. And he's the one that wrote this blog post announcing PowerShell for Visual Studio Code. Awesome. Amazing. I love Visual Studio Code. And we get to 2019. And in 2019, Windows Terminal came out. Windows Terminal, amazing, a new form of displaying anything that you want. Look at this. I've got PowerShell 7, I've got PowerShell Core, I've got Windows PowerShell, I've got the CMD prompt, I've got Azure Cloud, I've got Python, I've got Ubuntu. All of these things all running. And you can set your own backgrounds. It's amazing. I love it. It's brilliant. But for a decade and a half, Houston, we've had a problem. Without doing some work, And I know the clever folk here are going to be saying things like, well, you can do transcripts. Oh, you could have logging, all of these things. Absolutely, you can. But straight out of the box, without some work, every single one of these has got a fatal flaw. Let's point it out. Everybody has this problem with their PowerShell editor. Let's imagine that it's 3 o'clock in the morning, because it's always 3 o'clock in the morning when these things happen. And you've been called out because most important system number one has gone wrong. And you're woken up by a pager alarm or, your mobile phone goes off, some sort of app gives you some notification, and you go into your office and you open your laptop and you log onto the VPN and you try and remember where you've got to log on to, which server is it that I log on to get in to be able to see all the documentation that I need to be able to find out what's wrong with this thing. And you start writing some code. And you write this code, you try and find out what's wrong, and maybe we're PowerShell folk. Maybe we've got some pester that we run. I mean, hopefully we do. I've got lots of pester that I can just run. Let's see what's going on. And then maybe we run our pester and we get some results. But having fixed our issue, the next morning, when we're in what my wife calls a washing up meeting, a wash-up meeting, a retrospective, one of those meetings where we ask, how could we resolve this incident better? How could we move forward so that this doesn't happen? What things have we learned from this incident that we can take forward to make our system work more smoothly in the future? We say, well, I got these results, and so then I decided to do this thing. And one of your colleagues who's had, a full night's sleep, unbroken, maybe they've had a, proper coffee in the morning and eaten their breakfast, and they say, well, no, you see, if you got that result, then no, it definitely wouldn't have been doing this. It would have been doing that, like it did last Thursday. And you say, no, I'm sure, I'm certain. When I ran the pester, I got these results. But the problem is, I hit that cross. And when you hit that cross, you see all of your results, they're just gone. They're just completely gone. So with your results completely gone, you've got no way of proving to your colleagues, you've got no way of recording on your incident that there was this particular result for an issue. And this fatal flaw, I think, is the number one reason why you should consider using Jupyter Notebooks. There are others as well, but this, I think, is the most important reason. It's the one that provides you with the biggest benefit, and also the one which points out that my camera has just slightly flipped out. There we go. Can we see me? Yay, that's better. So come on, Rob, what is a Jupyter Notebook? As I said, I'm a production DBA, so I like things to be, simple, easy to see. And a Jupyter Notebook is a document that can contain text, executable code, images, and the query results. How cool is that? If I'd run that check in a notebook, then I could have attached it to my instance in the incident management system. I could have given it to my colleagues, could have shown it and said, look, see, this is definitely what we got. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen? So there are a whole number of ways that you can use Jupyter Notebooks. And I am going to recommend that what you do is you use Azure Data Studio. Okay, so Azure Data Studio, what's that? It's a cross-platform desktop environment for data professionals. Revelation Cyberdrain says, by executable code, do you mean I could run PowerShell in a document and gather the latest results? Oh, yes, my friend. Oh, yes. You wait and see. You're going to love this. So Azure Data Studio. Well, it looks just like Visual Studio Code, Rob. Yeah, absolutely, it does. So if you look here, this one will be Azure Data Studio, and this one will be Visual Studio Code, or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember. And you'll see that they look absolutely identical. And there's a good reason for that. The reason is they're using the same code base. So they're based on the same amount of code. Azure Data Studio is the same code as Visual Studio Code with some additional extra bits. The additional extra bits generally are things that add color for data people. So there are going to be certain overlays and widgets and reports that you can add into the various panes within Azure Data Studio that provide more value for people with data platform. Some things that are not in Azure Data Studio at the moment, the debugger. So right now you can't debug your code within Visual Studio Code. Sorry, within Azure Data Studio. But that's all that's really missing from Azure Data Studio that's in Visual Studio Code. So I will say let's use Azure Data Studio. Now, there's another complication here, because within the notebook world, there's a lot of confusion. So, yeah, the notebooks that we first talk about are Python-based notebooks, and they are, in our PowerShell world, they're going to be running PowerShell. And we'll talk a little bit more about exactly how they do that in a little while. But there's also .NET interactive notebooks. Oh, wow. They're amazing. They're announced in Ignite. Now they're a little bit more developed, and they are all of the goodness of Jupyter notebooks, but with added PowerShell Core, PowerShell 7, and C#, and F#, and HTML, not VBScript though. And just to make life even more confusing, then we will have a mention of the notebook mode in the PowerShell preview extension. That enables you to put your comments in PowerShell scripts as Markdown, but it doesn't save the results. But I'll just mention it there. So, Ian, I will answer your question about PowerShell and SQL in a little while. If I don't, please remind me, James. So you've got a notebook. What you going to do? So we've already talked about how you can make use of them within incident response. So often when I'm working at clients and they come over to me and say, can you stop working on this project because something's broken and we'd like you just to take a look because we're not able to work out what's going on right now. The first thing I do is open up a notebook. Because by opening up a notebook, I can start writing my notes together, I can start writing my code and getting the results, I can start building up something. And maybe we throw it away at the end, or maybe it actually becomes useful in investigating what's going on. You can create runbooks, common tasks that you do all of the time. Now, some of those might be in response to incidents. Some of those might be in response to the things that you're asked to do every day, you scripts you've got in your OneNote or in your Windows Share, whatever it is. What about training? How about new starters? When somebody joins your team, how cool is it if instead of pointing them at some documentation and having them try and work out where everything is, you can just say, here's some notebooks. You'll start learning which instance you need to connect to on a SQL term, which box you need to jump onto from if you're doing sysadmin work, or what the name of your domain is, what your naming convention is for your domain controllers or your SQL instances or your Azure resources, whatever it is, you can include that documentation and the screenshots and enable them just to work through it. Be much better. Or demos. Demos for presentations like this, demos to clients, showing off how a thing works. To your team members, look at this. I thought this might be cool. To your boss, look, these are the things that I've done this year. Aren't I brilliant? Pay me more money, please. Open source, showing off your open source. I use those all the time. But realistically, look, the world is your universe. Go as far as you like. Everything is open and available to you. Let's return back to incident response. And this is a slide from Julie. And Julie is one of the program managers at Microsoft in the Data Tools team. And this is their incident response flow ecosystem that they use with Jupyter notebooks. So what happens is something goes wrong. Of course, it's an incident response. Something is broken, an alert has gone on. Hopefully it's automated. Sometimes it might be your users calling up. Whatever happens, this has been pushed into your incident response system. And the person who is responding to this, they want to be able to investigate this problem and then hopefully to mitigate it. They open up the troubleshooting notebook repository and they grab a notebook that has been written for, this is the problem with the thing. And then they run through the notebook. They make sure that everything is followed through, they mitigate the problem. When they've finished, they attach that notebook to the incident response system, but they also go back and they analyze it. Did this notebook work as we expected? Did it have all the information that we needed? Did we need to add anything to it? And if need be, they update the notebook and push that into source control for the next person that comes along. Now, if they didn't have a notebook available for this particular incident, and one didn't fit the bill, then they create a new notebook and they follow the same process. Resolving the incident doesn't really affect the work that they do there. But once they finish, they probably spend a little bit more time tidying up this notebook and then committing it into the troubleshooting repository ready for the next person. And all the time, they try to automate as much of it as they possibly can. So you're saying, come on, Rob, that's enough. Let's stop talking about this. Let's see a notebook. But before we do that, probably what we want to know is, how do you do this? This is cool, isn't it? Yeah. So there's a short link, or there's a short link that's going to be able to help you how to do that. It took a little bit of PowerShell, some PowerPoint, and Streamlabs Ops. That was it. A little bit of work, and then it was done. But it's all there in the blog post. If you just use Ops, then you can. There's a C# application that Scott Hanselman has created that will do a similar thing. So let's end this. We don't want to see that anymore. And let's go to that. Here we go. So what we'll do now is we'll stop for a minute and we'll answer some of these questions. Close that because we don't see that right now. So we've got a question. Is there a PowerShell module to query data from SQL database, or do you need to write the query in T-SQL and use invoke SQL command? So use the right tool for the job is always going to be my answer to that. There are several modules for interacting with PowerShell. So Microsoft have the SQL Server module, which is available from 2016 and above. There is also the SQL PS module, but I will say don't use that. Forget that. Throw it away. If you want to write a SQL query, and then you want to gather those results in and make use of them within PowerShell, then you're going to want to either use the SQL Server module and invoke SQL command, which has, it's pretty good. Or there is the Dba Tools module. Dba Tools is a open source PowerShell module that enables you to do a whole load of SQL Server and other data platform administration. It's fantastic. There is 180, 200 contributors to it now. It has 500 and some odd commands. It's really it's really stable these days. It has a lot of CI/CD around before any command is released, which passed through an AppVer process that spins up SQL servers and runs the commands and makes sure everything works. A lot of pests are involved. We make sure everything's got any help. You'll see that I'm talking a lot about it because it's very, very passionate to me. It's very close to my heart. In fact, I'm even writing a book about it with Chrissy Lemaire. And you would definitely want to use Dba Tools if you want to take the results of those queries and then push them through into something else. So if you wanted to write them to a data table, then there's a write DBA data table command that's going to take those results and make it easy for you to use them in the future. What else have we got? So Judd says, what repo would be used for the notebooks? Literally within source control. What you would have is the incident response repository. So I don't know what they do inside Microsoft, but certainly one of my clients, we set up in TFS, although we moved it to Azure DevOps, just a source control repository that held the notebooks for the things that would break. And they just kept adding to these notebooks for various things. They're in the sort of airline and holiday industry. So if something went wrong with a website or seeing slowdown, people called out, they would just go to their jump box, and on that jump box would be the notebooks that they could then use. And whenever we made a change to the source code, Azure DevOps would just go build the notebooks and throw them down onto these jump boxes so that the DBA who was on call could make use of them. We also, because of that, I've written a module called ADS Notebook, which enabled them to, as part of their build process, build an index notebook. And then when you clicked on that, it would open, it would copy the notebook, name it with the date and the name of the person that was running it, and they could use that for their incident resolution. So read SQL table data in the SQL Server module doesn't get the IntelliSense one needs to write long queries. It doesn't. You're right. You're going to have to work on that. It's kind of difficult to be able to pull out that from the metadata and build it into the PowerShell command. Possibly something that you might want to put into Dba Tools. So if you went to dbatools.io, you could get linked off to the GitHub, raise an issue, ask for some folks to do some work there. So let's move on. So we are in Azure Data Studio. Do I have Zoom It? No, we don't have Zoom It running. So that ain't going to work, Rob. Let's start running Zoom It. And now I'm going to sit down because now I'm not going to wave my arms around quite as much. I still will, but no, it's not quite as much. You notice how disturbed the cat is from doing that, as in not at all. Okay, so we are in Azure Data Studio. Yeah, looks just like Visual Studio Code. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press Control Shift and P. And in fact, we're going to do that so that I can toggle the screencast mode. Because the most important thing to learn and to know about using Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code, because they're the same, is Control Shift and P opens you up the command palette. And within the command palette, you can then start typing to find the command that you wish to use. So in this case, we would like a new notebook. So if we start typing new notebook, sure enough, up comes the command. Now, it'll rise the most recent queries that you've run up to the top. So the most recent things that you've done will just come up to the top and you'll be able to use those easily. But that is the best way of finding things. So we've opened a notebook. We've now got a new notebook. And are notebooks searchable from outside ADS? It depends. They're just files. So if you have them in source control, you could open, what have we got there? We must have, here we go. There's the Visual Studio Code running the code that I use to make all of that magic. And if we look in, are we in the right place? Let's have a look. Nope. We open a folder. We'll open our Jupyter Notebooks folder. Now we could search for Dba Tools. And you're going to see that we're going to find out our it's very annoying when it does that to me. We're going to find out the results because it is just JSON. Yeah, it actually wasn't supposed to open. Visual Studio Code does this really helpful thing of making it into a Python notebook, which is actually not what I wanted it to do. But we will get out of Visual Studio Code and we'll come back to this one. We'll do a Control Plus, make sure that we're at a good size. And we're going to look up at the top here. So up at the top of our notebook, what we've got is this plus button is going to add as a new cell. Cell is going to either be a markdown documentation cell or it's going to be a code cell. With this button that says Run All, you'll never guess what it does. It runs the first cell. No, I'm joking. It runs all of the cells in order, starting at the top and moving down asynchronously, one after the other. And we have our kernel. This is not a Linux type kernel. This is the language that we're doing. And because we're in a SQL notebook at the moment, it says attach to and select connection. That's going to say which SQL instance do we want to run. So let's start with the first problem. This is what I'm going to call from now a not.NET, just an ordinary Jupyter notebook. And as you can see, we've got a SQL there and PySpark, Spark Scala, Spark R, Python 3, PowerShell. So we can change this to be a PowerShell. It's going to change the kernel. Now, when we run this PowerShell, what's going to happen is the Python is going to pass it to the PowerShell package. And the PowerShell package is then going to pass that code to the PowerShell executable. And it's going to run its command and it's going to pass the results back. The most recent versions now support streaming of those results. Those results then come back to the package and then be given back to Python, and then Python's going to display on the screen. So you can see it's never going to have any problems. There's never going to be anything go wrong with this. But actually, in all seriousness, most of the time it's absolutely fine. But that's just what's happening. And you notice I said PowerShell.exe. It's because I'm on a Windows machine. So on a Windows machine, the PowerShell package that Python's running is hard-coded to use Windows PowerShell 5.1. On a Linux machine, it is hard-coded to use 7.0.0, I believe, unless it's changed. I haven't checked in a month or so. So you're going to get slightly different results between Windows and Linux, not truly cross-platform, but the results are only, the differences are only between your Windows PowerShell and your PowerShell 7. So there's a few little bits there, but realistically, most things are going to work. Okay, so we've got our new cell, our new notebook. We want to add a new cell. And when we get a new cell, what we've got is, if we look over here, what we've got is this split screen. This is going to enable us to have Markdown on the left and a preview, a live preview of that on the right. We're going to have just straight Markdown if we want, and we've got this magic button here. Now, my default, as you can see, I've opened up just in the Markdown because I am happy to have this running. I don't mind having headings. I can start writing bullet points really easy. You know, this works for me. So I like that to be my default. You can also make use of these buttons up here. You see you've got a nice little menu, so you can change everything you like up there and do what you want. But I'm going to say you probably want to start off by looking at this one. This is what it will open with by default. This is the magic button. This is the rich text view, is its official name. And I guarantee that some of you on this stream have stuff. Oops, let's do that in there. Well, that'll be much better. Have stuff in OneNote. Yeah, I know this is true. I know this is true. And if we type that over there, I can make sure I've got the right thing. So you're going to have stuff like this. You have a OneNote document, and your OneNote document is going to have some descriptions. Yeah, you're going to have some pictures. There we go. We've got our pictures. We've got, look at this, 1 to 7 little bulleted points there. We've got a whole load of stuff here. We've got a bit of code. Now those are pictures. But you can see, I know this is what you've got. So just imagine if you could just do Control A, copy all of that, go over here, and paste. And would you look at that? As if by magic, in fact, I literally call this sorcery. It is fantastic. What you've got is your text from your OneNote document just taken through. Let's try something else. What else have we got? We could do something like this. He has no idea I'm going to be doing this. It's hilarious. So you can imagine that what we're doing is we're in an incident response scenario, and we have got some problems going on, and you want to take a screenshot. So you do Shift, Window key, and S. Take a screenshot, and then you can come to here and you can paste it just like that. And then you can get James, look, on the thing. See? Straight off of the Obs Ninja page. It's fantastic. But just imagine, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to paste it. You don't have to turn it into a document. You don't have to have, I can't remember the program, snippet open just to be able to do this. You can just paste it straight in there. Absolutely amazing. How's it done? If you look in the background, you'll see that basically what we've got here is that showing over the top. Let's try it again. There we go. Is a base 64 encoded image. So that's how the magic's happened. And you will find that what happens is if you wanted to write some more code in amongst this, it's going to get a little bit messy. The other question I'm often asked is, can I seriously? I didn't realize you were base 64 encoded quite so much here, James. Are we ever going to get to the bottom? Should I just give up? Oh, no. Let's use that one instead. Here we go. Oh, no. I've forgotten how to do it. What I was going to say is people often ask, is it possible to resize these? And it is. And you'll have to ask me on Twitter because I've forgotten how to do it. So we've got some code. What else does this do? Let's take another thing. Let's go to PowerShell.org and let's see what we can copy from here. So let's copy something like that. And if we copy that, oh, you can see that I was talking to James. There we go. And if we add this in to our rich text view, look at that. That's cool. And in fact, even better, these are actual links. This is the code. So if we have a look, what it's done is literally copied all of that and turned it into something magic. And this works with Word documents, this works with Excel documents, this works with web pages, this works with OneNote, as we've seen. It works with PowerPoint. It is fantastic. And, you know, we all love doing documentation, of course, but this makes it nice and easy to do. All right, well, what about some code? If we click on our code, we start typing, you can see we've got some IntelliSense coming on. So we could do this version table, and then we press this button here, and then it's going to run and it's going to give us our results. So that's really cool. Look, it's neat. Giving us everything that we want. And as you can see, if I press the right thing, we are running 5.1 because it's a Windows machine. I'm running Windows. That's what we get in a normal notebook. So what else could we do? Let's add another code cell. Code cell, and we'll do get. Let's do get process. Here we go, and we can F5 to run that, and we'll start getting some processes coming through. And once that's finished, yeah, that's gone all the way through to zoom it. So now imagine it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're looking at an incident. Maybe the incident is something to do with our Windows machine. We've run get process, and whoa, there we go. Look at that. We just close our Azure Data Studio completely by accident. James, what's happened to the results of our PowerShell query?
Well, if you push that little X in the top right-hand corner, it's going to be gone.
It is. So let's just open up Azure Data Studio. Would you, Adam and Eve, have a look at that? How cool is that? I did not save this notebook. You can see here, we've got a default name. We've got unsaved, not saved at all. But Azure Data Studio's autosave has kept not just, yes, thank you very much for being so helpful. Not just has it kept the code that I've written, but it's actually kept my results as well. I've got my results, got all of my get process, everything is as we expected. Super cool. Would I rely on it? No. Has it got me out of trouble? Once. Once in 8 or 9 months, I've accidentally closed the wrong program. Opened it up again. There is everything. It's super, super good. But somebody said, what am I doing? There we go. Let's save this. Somebody said, these are just JSON files, and they are. So if we do, we'll save this as PS. All right, there we go. And if we do control single quote, we'll open up this. See, I'm running PowerShell 7.1. That's relevant for a minute. And we'll look at the file itself. Oh, that looks rubbish, doesn't it? Let's do this instead. Yes, I know I can use set clipboard. Let's do that. And we'll paste it. And you'll see a notebook is just a JSON file. That's really cool. What you've got at the top is a bit of metadata. It tells us we're running PowerShell. This tells me that it's a not.NET PowerShell notebook. And then it gives us some cells. And our cells have got what type they are, code. Otherwise, it would be, say, text. We have source, which is going to hold either our Markdown or our PowerShell or SQL or R or whatever other language we're running. And then we've got some outputs. So our outputs are going to include, there we go, there's the column names, the header names that we've got, and here is our values. And here is our values. There we go. So we've got our things. This is what we've got running. Those are our results. That's how it works. It's important to realize this and to understand this is what's going, because it means it's awesome. It's awesome because we can go to source control and it's just a flat file. So we could source control our notebooks. We can see who's made what changes. We can make sure that it works. We can revert back to a previous version really easily. All of the good things about source control, can incorporate it into builds, CI/CD systems, etc., etc. That's really good. What's really bad is if my friend is running a SQL query that he's going to use within PowerShell, and the results are going to be put out to the screen, and those results include James's date of birth and the name of his little girl and where he lives, he might not be happy that those results are stored in ctemp on some random person's machine. He'd hope that actually people were really looking after that. And it's important to understand, because obviously if I push this up in source control, it's got PII data in it, then we need to be sure we're looking after it. Something just to consider. The other part of it is that maybe not so much in the PowerShell world, but in the data world, if you return back a gigabyte of data here in your results, your notebook is going to be a gigabyte and some in size. And Azure Data Studio isn't going to handle that completely brilliantly. It's going to find that a little bit troublesome to work with. So it's important to understand how much data you're going to be creating, because that's how big your notebook's going to get. Okay, so those are some good and bad things about notebooks. These are our not.NET notebooks, and you'll see in Azure Data Studio over here that this is not our Explorer. And then you've got these additional ones, and it's a little bit different from your Visual Studio. You can, of course, modify it to make it work for you, but just to be aware that that's what's happening. Which way round shall we do this? So people say, can I do can I run multiple languages? No. You've got PowerShell, or you've got SQL, or you've got R, or you've got Spark, or whatever it is. That is what you build. That is what you've got at the moment. And of course, it's documentation. So I can just say to people, hey, just change the kernel up to do something different. Don't do that. It'll work most of the time. And then when it doesn't, everything will go horribly, horribly wrong. Because basically you're asking the Python to switch the package that it's using to display and work with the code. So, you know, life is kind of difficult in that scenario. Of course, because it's PowerShell, one thing that we can do, I've opened a .NET one. One of the things that we can do is to grab our SQL queries with PowerShell and make use of them in that way. If we were wanting to, let's go to this notebook. If you want to add some PowerShell to a SQL notebook, then you can do that in this way. This is some magic going on down here. You can open these notebooks. I'll show you where to find these in a minute. So once you've got a bit of PowerShell, you can do that. So we just open the terminal just by clicking a link. We can make sure we're in Posh. We can set a location, list some files. It's all running in the terminal. And if you're really silly, you can just play some Metallica. Because I am quite often very silly and I listen to a lot of Metallica. But the point here is that what I've done in a notebook that is running as a SQL notebook is I've invoked some PowerShell. Now I've done it by creating a URL encoded PowerShell link, and then clicked on that within the Markdown, and then it has started to run the PowerShell. And you'll notice it's running it in the terminal. So I'm not able to keep these results. These results are gone. But it is a way of enabling you to run PowerShell within a SQL notebook, and you can run SQL within a PowerShell notebook. And you can probably call Python and R and those other things if you really wanted to. So that's a way of being able to do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a reload window. And there's a very good reason why I'm going to do that, because what I'm going to do is, thank you for being so helpful, is I'm going to create Shift N. There we go. We'll create a new notebook. Let's do Windows N, because that's the right shortcode, Rob. Oh, that was good. Okay, we'll do that then. We've got a notebook, and we're like, okay, we want to have these .NET interactive notebooks. How does that work? Okay, let's see. You can open a notebook, and then you can change the language to .NET. Oh, hang on a minute. It's not there. Ain't got no .NET. What's going on? Well, before you are able to run a .NET interactive notebook, you need to jump through some hoops. So you need to go to Google and type in .NET interactive notebooks, follow the steps to maybe install Anaconda, and then add in the .NET interactive, and then install the Jupyter within that, and make sure everything is there and ready. And once you've done that, within ADS, you'll find that you don't see any kernel. And you've got to do two things. First thing you're going to do is go to Settings and type kernel. And when you do that, you'll see that there's a preview still. It's been for 5 or 6 months now. That allows you to show all the kernels that are available. You need to tick that one. It's unticked by default. And then once you've done that, there's a little bug, which means that the first thing you're going to do is change to a different kernel. So we'll change to PowerShell. We'll let that load. And once that's loaded, then we can go through. And now we've got .NET C#, .NET F#, .NET PowerShell, and this amazing virtual environment Python if you want to play with that as well. So that's cool. So now we can have, let's actually change to a .NET 1, Rob. There we go. Otherwise, this bit doesn't work. Now we can say, right, let's look down here. This is my own personal terminal. It's running PowerShell 7.1.0. That's what I've got installed as my default for this machine. If we run this code here, we do ps version table, then you can see that what it's running is 7.0.2. It still knows it's Windows, but that's the version of PowerShell. That's the version of PowerShell that our .NET Interactive is running at the moment. Some other things to look at is if we come into here and we do, let's do, yes, module path, yes, module path, and run that. Oh, let's split it so we can make it easier. That's not going to work at all. Oh, thanks for changing my keyboard language. Cute. There we go. So you'll see if you look for your module path that you've got some interesting ones here. So these are the ones that are going to come up at the top. .NET Tools, Store, Microsoft.NET Interactive, the version number, Microsoft Interactive, blah, 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 blah. And that's where your modules are going to be loaded first by default sometimes. So it's much better now. When they first released this, there were a few times when it would load the wrong version or wouldn't be able to find the version that you've got. But you'll see that you've still got your default ones that you expect for PowerShell Core, and of course for Windows PowerShell as well. So that's really cool. Still seeing no questions. Please throw questions in. Otherwise, if you've got a question, I guarantee somebody else will have the same question. No, we won't save that. So let's go on and look at .NET notebooks. No, let's actually not do that. Let's actually, first of all, go and show you where you can find this. So if you go to github.com/SQLDBA with a beard, what you're going to find is my GitHub repository. And here is my presentations repository. That's going to have every presentation that I've done, all of the code. Go there, make use of it. It's all there for you to use. This repository that I'm using right now is the Jupyter Notebooks repository. In the Jupyter Notebooks repository, we had the introduction to notebooks. We did adding PowerShell to SQL notebooks. And one of the beautiful things about notebooks is how can we share them? Well, as you can see, one way of sharing them is within GitHub. So we can actually put our notebooks into GitHub or as a gist, and they will render like this. We won't be able to run the code, but we will be able to see the code and the results. And in fact, if we go back, let's find one that might have some results in. Let's see if this has got some results in. It'll also have results. Now, this is really useful. One of the things I do when people ask me a question, well, why is PowerShell doing this? Why is SQL doing this? How can I connect to Azure like that? I'll create a notebook, because then they can see the code that I've run and the results that I get. Or maybe I could put their code into a notebook and show them why it's not working, and then give them some code that works. And they can just look at it in the browser, or they can download it and play with it themselves. So notebooks are fantastic. Here we go, look. So here we've got our code that we ran, and we had a one row affected, how long it took to run, and there's our output. So we've got our results displayed in GitHub as well. So super, super good. So what were we at? 20 past the hour. Let's just go back to here and let's have a quick look at PowerShell 7. So let's do things like this. So we can look at PowerShell 7 inside our .NET Core, and we can say, well, look, these are our ternary operators. So one thing we might want to do is write some code. Do we have this path? If we do, write Gordon's alive. If not, look, water is leaking from her eyes. So if it doesn't exist, that's what happens. We're used to writing stuff like this, but it makes so much more sense when you can just use those two things, put them in. You just need your braces to be able to do it. Even do something like this. So we can do, if we've got this, great. Otherwise, write, otherwise write warning, look, water is leaking from her eyes. Super cool. It's a little bit confusing when you first start reading it, but it is super cool. Second thing we get asked, one of the things we get asked was, can we run multiple languages? And you can't run multiple languages in ordinary notebooks, but in a .NET PowerShell, in a .NET interactive notebook, you can make use of some magic commands. And the magic command looks like that. So it's a hash and a bang and the language. And it says this cell, this bit of code is now going to be C#. Now, I am no C# writer, so this is just a bit of fun and games. But what we're going to do is to see how long does it take C# and PowerShell Core to count 0 directories, 0 files. Got no files. Oh dear. We've got no files. you already exist. Good. That's beautiful. Are you still running? There we go. So one thing we can see here is that our cell block is running because it's spinning. The other place where you'll be able to see that is not available to me on this. So the other place you can see that if you're looking at .NET Interactive on in the browser, is you can see that. In fact, let's show it. So we're waiting for that to run because it's a bit of fun. We'll go to Anaconda. We'll go. Let's go to there. Because why not? You all want to see me navigate through a load of stuff. Go to Jupyter Lab. Okay, so this is another way of interacting with our notebooks. And what I'm going to do is just get myself through to my GitHub. There we go, Jupyter Notebooks. Right. So when we installed .NET Interactive, one of the things we did was install Anaconda, install .NET Interactive, all of this stuff. Now it means I can go into that and just type Jupyter Lab. And that's going to open me up in a browser, this. So in our browser, we can open up our .NET notebooks, pick a different PowerShell one. Let's pick and or null. Now we've got our notebook running in a browser via Python. But that means that I can do things like this. This is actually going to be running. So that, oh, look at that, beautiful. You don't exist. Oh, uh-oh, the beard is sad. Now we need a terminal here. There we go. There we go. Now we're getting some stuff. So you see, in our notebook, these errors are coming out as we expect them. Beautiful thing about .NET Interactive is that you're getting colors. So this is not just a black and white text output. We're actually getting some colors coming through in here. So we're getting our pester, then we'd have our greens and yellows and reds if we want them. We can see that our code is formatted and our results are coming out as well. And we can just keep running our code. I am literally running and executing code that's running in my browser. Oh, I haven't got a message on that one. There we go. Uh-oh, the beard is sad. Let's do that. There we go. Oh, we've got some nulls. So I'm showing you this just because it enables you to see what's going on. What is the significant difference between ADS and the .NET Interactive interfaces? Which do you recommend? Here we go. Let's do that. Oh, let's do that. Here we go. And oh, that's finished. Good. So what are the significant differences? I would say, personally, that this, if I do that, let's open the same one. What are we doing? Mix and match. So let's go back to there. Literally open the same thing. Personally, I would say this on the left looks a little bit nicer than this on the right. Might be a personal preference. Where is my run all? Here, I've forgotten how to do it. No, well, it won't be, will it? Because we need to do that. And then we can do that. Attempted to divide by 0. Excellent work, Rob. Good work. I would say that this is the wrong thing to do. Why did you? Oh, look, see? That's what happens. Okay. Let's open you again. Yes, it didn't fail. I quit out of it. Thank you very much. Let's not run. Let's put my not back in there. So let's run all cells. The beauty of this one was that it works its way down through. This just does the same. The other thing we get is the output is slightly different. Let's cancel that, please. So over here, we're going to get that error a couple of times because I have got the same file open in two different places. Look here is our output. Here is our output. Outputs are slightly different, still got the colors, but I'd say this was a bit nicer to reuse. This, to be honest, the reason I said you should use Azure Data Studio is the number one reason. Let's stick that one. Is that button. Because that button, without a doubt, means that you can just copy and paste stuff in from all sorts of sources and it is just going to work. Whereas if you try that in the browser, ain't going to do it. Yeah, so once you've got, if you just add a new, see, there's the thing, but we just add a new block, it doesn't even ask you what it is. You got to come down, you got to go through and change it, you make it a markdown. If I take a screenshot of this, yeah, I know, Judd, I always forget that that's the thing that I can do. It says use win left and win right shortcuts to snap the windows. For some reason, that's the one that just clicks out of my head completely. I use a lot of others. So I just tried to copy and paste that and it just hasn't worked. We haven't got that. Whereas if I did it over here with this, there we go. You see, I should definitely do that because that would make life so much easier. Okay, can you export a Jupyter notebook to a PDF? So, let me just check something. You can, you've got to use something called NB convert to come back to there. There we go. Let's that. Yes, leave. Thank you very much. So you've got to use this one. It's another step, but yeah, you just need to work with that, and then you can do it. I can carry on showing stuff, but I think really I'm just going to say go and use it, give it a go. Yeah, try installing .NET Interactive for certain. Your PowerShell folk, you want to use PowerShell Core. This is a nice, easy way of getting into it, seeing what's going in. Do that. Install ADS. It's like Visual Studio Code. Literally, won't take you any time to learn how to use it. You can just crack on and do it. Install the PowerShell extension. You're going to get PowerShell as a terminal. You can do all of the good things, and then start running and writing them. And then I would literally start bringing them into your workplace, because as you can see, these are the things that I've been able to write for people that I can share. I've got all of these notebooks that do different things with different technologies. I've written a whole load more for other clients that I haven't been able to put in here. Go make stuff happen, make it work. You'll find so many uses for them. I don't really have a way of ending this because I always just end up just chatting and answering people's questions until they're done. But you got 30 seconds or so. Maybe James is going to jump in with a magic question now. Ask me any questions in the chat. Otherwise, come in and shout at me on Twitter.
Yeah, I think we got everything out of the chat so far.
Cool beats. What do you think? You going to use notebooks more now?
It is on my 2021 to-do list. I think Judd also mentioned that somewhere, so I'm definitely gonna try to jump into it.
Excellent. Excellent. I as you can tell, I absolutely love them. I find them so useful all the time, and I've in not just for me myself, but working with teams, it's so much easier to say, "Hey James, just open the notebook repo and go to the one for Azure storage, and that's got all of the things that you need to be able to do to solve that problem," and that's it, and go away. It's all done.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I do have to run. My wife has a doctor's appointment, so I'm on babysitting duty for the next hour or so.
So that's perfect for me. My name's Rob Saul. You can get in touch with me at the SQL DBA with Beard on Twitter. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. And don't forget, for those of you watching at home, the CFP for the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit does end in 10 days from today, January 15th at 11:59 p.m. UTC. So I guess that's 23:59 actually. But so you got any questions? Feel free to hit me up on Twitter, or you send us a message. If not, we'll see you guys hopefully in 2 weeks at our next Power Hour. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.